All right. How's it going, gentlemen?
Wonderful.
Hi, all. All right. So we got a couple of people on this call. We have Dr. Bill Dawson out in California. And then we have Dr. Rob Shaw in Connecticut, myself, Dr. Dave Tran in sunny Florida, Orlando area. But cool. Yeah. Thanks for hopping on the call. The whole idea was to get to know some of the Concept Therapy Institute docs who have been not only through all of the different courses and curriculums, but have been studying the work for long periods of time. And also too, been doing a lot of interviews and chats with a lot of the teachers of the Institute as well too. Like we had the fortunate chance to be able to do a one-on-one interview with Dr. Bill before, where we really got to know more about him and how he got started with concept therapy. But I had chatted with Rob. I was like, man, like, what if we just did a interview or a Q&A with Dr. Bill and just ask him a little bit more day-to-day things of how he first came across. I guess we can talk a little about that too. And then how you started practice and how you're applying the work to not only help the people in your office, but also in your day-to-day life. I guess we can start there. Just as a refresher, what year did you get started with concept therapy? Or how long?
1974.
Okay, gotcha. And then were you in practice at that time?
No, I was a student
Right,
at
that's right.
Cleveland Chiropractic College in LA.
Okay. And then when you first, did NUCCA come first or did NUCCA come after?
NUCCA came first. So I had been a patient of Dr. Ralph Gregory, who was really the founder of NUCCA. I'd been a patient of his in the early 70s. And so that's the only chiropractic I knew until I got into chiropractic college, where we did something different.
And feel free to hop in here anytime, Rob.
Sure.
Anytime you have any questions and stuff like that too. So whenever you first started practice, just with me, I was a part of different groups before, and I learned that early on, not really early on, but I learned that I did well whenever somebody was like, hey, this is the parameters. All right, this is what you needed to do, this A, B, and C, and stuff like that too. And if you do this, like you'll get a certain level of success or you'll be able to help a certain amount of people. But like when you first opened practice, and I know that you worked alongside other people, did you feel like you had a playbook that you went by, or did you add different things together?
When you start in practice, you guys both know this. When you start in practice, you're still learning. Getting through school doesn't teach you how to be a doctor. It just teaches you some mechanics and pass the board. And now's when you start learning. And I've always done NUCCA from day one. I also incorporated the zone work principles into my practice a lot in the very beginning, until it became an internal part of me. And that's the key to being a healer or to being a good spine adjuster. It has to be, you have to put it in here before it can come out there. And a lot of doctors don't understand that. They think it's all in the technique or all in the words or all in whatever they've been taught. But you're a doctor from the inside out, not from the outside in.
And then, so I know with NUCCA, there's a certain procedure in regards to the process, in regards to shooting x-rays and then drawing lines and seeing the patients that way as well too. And at what point did you were also teaching at that time as well?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So how did you juggle between opening your practice and then diving into the work and then also teaching as well?
I've never worked Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I left my Fridays open for both taking concept therapy classes and teaching them. And so everything just fell right into place, and it's worked ever since.
Yeah, I remember that. I had momentarily started taking off on Tuesdays and I think I did it for a couple of weeks, but then as on future pace, me taking courses, I was like, man, like I liked having that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And if I really needed to travel out on Friday or on Thursday to make for example, like a concept therapy course, because concept therapy starts like Friday morning, bright and early, depending on where you're traveling. So I was like, man, like I need to kind of change my hours back around so that I can travel as much as well too. But going back to your process of, okay, so when you first opened your practice, were you like, hey, did you have the idea that like you wanted to immediately start applying concept therapy? Like, how did that process come together in regards to, because I know with NUCCA, there's a lot of structure with NUCCA, right? And a lot of Dr. Fleet's work in concept therapy, it really dives into a lot of the metaphysical. So how did you marry those two together?
I had to come to understand that there's a difference between pure chiropractic and, to me, NUCCA is the purest form because it is based upon measurement, and healing, because anybody can be a healer. You don't have to be a chiropractor to be a healer. I don't know what bones Jesus adjusted, or some of the religious healers that are actually, I'm not talking about the fake ones, but I'm talking about real ones that are getting true results, symptomatic results. I don't like to use that word results because everybody has a different definition of it. But what I had to do was marry the reduction of subluxations measurably on x-ray, which is what NUCCA is all about. You can prove what you've done by re-x-raying people and seeing where you have put the bones. And if you haven't done it exactly right, there's different things that you can do to make it better and better. So the goal in NUCCA is to totally reduce the atlas subluxation complex, which involves the head, the atlas axis, the whole neck, over the center of the body. And so there's basically no brainstem fractionization. That's the goal of NUCCA. But there's a difference between doing that and being a healer, because in healing, you want to reduce the patient's symptomatology. I don't ever have a patient walk into my office, brand new, first time, saying, hey, doc, I want you to reduce my atlas subluxation complex maximally. They come in and they say, I've got these headaches. I got this neck pain. My lower back's killing me. I've got sciatic and it's running down my leg. Can you fix that? And so they want to get healed, but the NUCCA doctor wants to measurably correct their spine and keep it that way. And that's a whole major process. It's very difficult. It's like the difference between going out on the golf course and looking at all the duffers out there that are hitting the ball because they love the fresh air and they love the challenge and so on, and they might shoot 100. But looking way over there in the corner, there's a pro, and you might find one pro golfer on every 10 golf courses you go to. Their goal is to get as much down into the 60s as they possibly can, because they're really interested in getting the best score possible. Most golfers, yeah, they want to get a good score, but they're out there with their buddies, can't wait for the 19th hole. And that's general golf. To become a pro golfer is years of practice, constant coaching. You don't go out there without having somebody watch you. So you got to hit that ball exactly right. And if you hit it exactly right, it's going to go into that hole quicker. The NUCCA procedure is similar to that, except the hole is not 400 yards out there. It might be a 16th of an inch away. But to get the correction measurably, so you know what you've done, and there it is on the x-ray, you have measured things up, you've measured them before you adjusted them, you measure them after you've adjusted them, so you know what you've done to that patient and where to go from there. There's a difference between that and being a healer, because like I said, Jesus was a healer. There are lots of healers out there. There are healers in homeopathy and naturopathy and all the forms of chiropractic. There are healers. And a good doctor, in my opinion, wants to be both. If he's a chiropractor, the purpose of chiropractic from the very beginning was to adjust the vertebrae, not manipulate. to adjust. And the definition of adjust is to move something toward or to a preassigned normal position. So if you're adjusting your car, let's say you're adjusting your tire pressure, you have a gauge which measures. So you know exactly what you've done when you put that air in there. And then you take the air hose off and you put your gauge on there and you know exactly what you've done. That's measurement. And so in chiropractic, in NUCCA, we measure so that we know what we've done, know where we need to go from there. And hopefully we've corrected the spine maximally. That's NUCCA. Healing doesn't require that. It requires a composite personality where the doctor and the patient have come together as one unit. So the doctor is the originator of the healing. And in chiropractic terms, the innate intelligence takes the order from the doctor and does the healing. This is all laid out very well in the phase one conceptology phase one class. I think you both have been through phase one, correct?
I haven't been through phase one.
You haven't.
Not yet.
Oh man, you are missing out. You can't miss phase one. Robin, my wife, and
Yeah.
my wife is the president of the board of the Concept Therapy Institute, and we'll be back there later this year to teach phase one. It's going to be an incredible class. It's going to be, I think we're going to go 4 or 5 days to teach this one. I always do my classes when I'm just teaching on my own, 3 full days. We go 30 hours. I think this phase one's going to be 40 some hours. It's going to be great. But anyway, this is where we get into the healing principle. So concept therapy has never been about adjusting spines. We can use the spine if we're using the zone technique and stimulate those 4 bones associated with each zone. So each zone has 4 different bones associated with that zone. And that's to kick the brain center into gear so that the brain then sends down the life, the innate, into the body to heal it. And what I've done in my practice, and I've been in practice for 48 years now, is combine the two, because my left brain wants me to know that I have adjusted people correctly, measurably, no guessing. There in NUCCA, there's no guessing.
Right.
And so there are no excuses. It's
I mean,
all measured.
yeah, for people that aren't familiar with NUCCA, there's a process to it as well too. I had the honor of being an intern at Brooks Spinal Care with Dr. Robert Brooks out in Tulsa, Oklahoma, but he has now passed. But one of the things that I was always amazed with was the anatometer, with the large device that measures the spinal posture of the patient standing and the rotation, tilt, and stuff like that too. Did you do those types of measurements as well, like for each patient on visits, or how did that work for your
When
class?
I started, see, I got trained by Dr. Ralph Gregory back in the 70s. And all Dr. Gregory used was leg length check, supine leg length, but done properly, because
Right.
it's very easy to do it wrong. And people don't understand that, but there is there's a science and an art to the supine leg check. So Dr. Gregory did that. And then back in his day, and I followed along with that, we used a neurocolometer. So, the heat sensor that you run up the back of the neck all the way up into the skull. And the old ones would come out on a tape. You tear the tape off, you look at it, and you can see the line, how wiggly it is, and so on. And the early NUCCA doctors, which came out of the old Grostic method, but the early doctors, a lot of them didn't even do leg checks. They would use that scope exclusively to check people. And
Right.
that's basically what I've done. I do not own an anatometer, at least yet. They're time consuming, and I only work 3 short days a week anymore. So I'm obviously semi-retired. And so the thought of incorporating the anatometer, I don't have time,
Sure.
because I see enough patients to where the leg length and so on satisfy me.
So that's your left brain, and you explained that. So how does your right brain kind of play in this now?
The right brain wants me to be a healer, and it wants me to contact and direct the innate intelligence of that patient into a healing. And that is not just done by adjusting bones. That's done by, again, that composite personality where the doctor and the patient, they come together as one, and the doctor can direct the healing force, the innate intelligence of the patient. And that's not a part of the NUCCA work any more than correctly adjusting a spine is part of the concept therapy work, because concept therapy doesn't teach you how to adjust a spine. When Dr. Fleet originated the zone work, he said, do whatever you want. Just hit those four bones, hit them however you want. And so there's no science behind that. It's all philosophy and art. And so I've tried to combine the two ideas. I love measurement because I love science, and anything scientific has a measurement aspect to it. And it's an agreed upon measurement too. A person can't just say, I crack a person's neck and I check their muscle, and if their muscle got strong, I know I've corrected their neck. And I would say, let's take x-rays and find out if you've corrected the neck, because muscle testing is very subjective. And as there are many things, many tests that we could do to see what we've accomplished with a patient.
And
I
then,
take a lot of x-rays.
okay. Yeah. And then with Rob, so did you take the like phase one? Like you've only taken it once, or how many times?
Yeah, I just took phase one.
Oh, that's right. I remember that.
I just took phase one. It was back in December. And through Bill's encouragement, I made sure I was at the ranch for phase one so that I could feel it and experience it in person. There's a ton of interaction, and you really have to be there in body, mind, and spirit to experience the whole thing. It's pretty fascinating. So I'm still a baby in the whole apology. I've taken, of course, concept therapy. I've taken that a couple of times. I took phase one twice, one online, and then of course the second time I went to the ranch to have it done in real time. But yeah, my experience, I've been practicing zone work and concept therapy for probably the past 5 years. I was introduced like you through Dr. Pete with his zone work. And after doing that for a few years and wanting to dig deeper into the philosophy and to find out more about Dr. Fleet and what was behind it, that's when I started taking the courses with concept therapy. My background, it's interesting here, Dr. Bill, just being a NUCCA practitioner for his entire career. I've been practicing for over 30 years now, and I've gone to gamut from basic diversified work out of college. I was a CBP guy for a good number of years. I had weights and lead balls that used to hang off of people's heads, of course, to try to get things to change and curves to change. I moved into knee chest work for a while. I did that for a while. And I've been, for the past 7 years or more, practicing just exclusive zone and concept therapy. So I feel the same, a kindred spirit with Dr. Bill with being right-brained and left-brained. And my right brain really needed to know that I was making changes. So the CBP work gave me that satisfaction. But as far as concept therapy and working with patients and being a healer, I find more in my later years that I gravitate more towards just trying to connect with people and to build rapport and to see those healings happen with the zone technique. And it's probably been the happiest that I've been in practice doing this work.
That's awesome. Yeah. Similar with me too, like in chiropractic school, I think I took every single seminar on the planet and was just like, okay, like if this is what I was going to do for the rest of my life, then I really need to dive in and have a truly understanding of what we did. And I was really focused in on technique. So I took like Motion Palpation Institute. I took, which is very diversified, focused in, and then was part of Gonstead Club. And then through another management group was learning about curve correction with Pedibon or Clear Institute. And then I went like super way left and tried to learn a little bit more about the tonal work stuff. So I was like, okay, so I got really deep into like network and going up, taking the different courses. But at the same time we're learning about knee, chest, upper cervical. And for me, I think I fell into the whole trap of becoming like this hate straight where I was like, okay, hey, if you're not doing this, then what are you doing in regards to chiropractic? It's okay, if you're not using a thermography tool, If you're not using a Titron, then how do you know you're doing anything?
And you know, that to me, I understand where you're coming from. And to me, that's the big shame in chiropractic, is that we've got so many different techniques, and we can get docs that are so focused on the right technique or the wrong technique. But the person that suffers in that is the patient.
Right.
I mean, at the very end, it's the patient that we're trying to get better, or we're trying to establish the better function of innate within these people, and we shouldn't be fighting each other in technique. And that's why I love Dr. Fleet's work, because this is the common ground.
Right.
This is the foundation, whether you're practicing NUCCA or upper or knee chest work or Gonstead or CBP, because in all of those techniques, you've got chiropractors that are doing miracles in their office. And then also in all those techniques, you're getting guys that are not seeing anything happen. So then what's the common denominator between the ones that are getting great results with Gonstead or NUCCA or upper cervical or CBP? And that constant is the rapport, and the constant is the connection that these doctors are having with their patients and understanding. One thing that Dr. Bill said that really I appreciate is the desire to be the best in whatever you do. And that concept, that idea of I'm the best at whatever I do, and I'm going to put the time and effort into it, you're basically telling the universe that I'm ready. I'm ready to heal. I'm ready to do the bidding of innate, and whether it's NUCCA or whatever, just that idea of being the best. I was a CBP practitioner back in the day when Don Harrison taught, and what a character, and what an unbelievable chiropractor that just dedicated all of his time and research into just backing up his technique and backing up what he believed was the right thing to do. And the same thing with Gonstead. You're talking about someone with an unbelievable desire and goal to be the best at his technique. So I think anyone out there who's a student or a budding chiropractor or who's been in practice for 30 years, if you can find that point inside of you that you want to be the best at what you do, you're setting something magical in motion. And I think that comes through with your hands. I think it comes through with the rapport that you're going to build with the patient. Yeah. I hope that made sense somehow.
Of course it does. Before we start diving into phase one, I find that there's a lot of people that haven't really dove into and have an understanding of actual concept therapy itself, the first course. And like just to give context, like I'm reviewing some of it now, and then I think I need to talk to the Institute and get on the phone with them and get my membership freed up where I can take the online course. I don't know if the learning management system is ready to go yet.
It supposedly is ready.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, but yeah, I definitely want to review it and obviously take it live in person as well too. But for people that aren't familiar with the actual first course, concept therapy, how would you explain that course, Dr. Bill?
Concept therapy addresses the fact that every person has problems. And our problems are very unique to us. I live with a woman, she's got her problems, I've got my problems. But concept therapy teaches the laws, the natural laws, that when we learn them and understand them, we can use those laws to solve and eliminate our problems, and therefore make life better. Some of our problems are on the physical plane, and some on the mental or emotional plane, some on the spiritual plane. And the beauty of the basic concept therapy course and all of the courses that follow concept therapy are just grand expansions of the one basic course called concept therapy. The rest of them are conceptology. But concept therapy has as its end goal to get us into a higher level of consciousness. And that's hard to explain. I have a couple of border collies here at the house, and they're extremely intelligent dogs. They're loving and they care, and they want to serve. They're really cool dogs, but no matter what I teach them, they can never really get what I get. I look out, we live in the mountains in California, and I'm sitting here in a back bedroom, and I'm looking out the window right there, and it's all of these beautiful 7,000 foot mountains out there. And I look at those mountains and I go, oh man, look at that. My border collies can look at the same mountains and they say, yep, there's those mountains, because they don't have something that the human being has. Humans are different from animals, obviously. History has demonstrated and proven the fact that there are higher levels of consciousness above human. And the people that have really done things for humanity, whether it's Einstein and Tesla in science, or those in religion who have brought higher teachings in religion, I could use Jesus as an example. They've had experiences that lifted them up out of the human realm into a higher realm of consciousness. And those religious figures have always tried to drop back down into the human level and say, look, there's something better, and there's something more peaceful, and there's something more beautiful. Buddha called it nirvana. And he said, I've got steps. If you'll follow my steps, you can attain to nirvana just like I did. And it's a land of peace and happiness. Jesus called it being one with God, one with his Father. He called God his Father. And he said, my Father and I are one, and I want you to be one with the Father too. Concept therapy has a goal because it happened to Dr. Thurman Fleet, the founder of concept therapy. He had this experience which put him above, out of human and above into a higher level of consciousness that we call cosmic consciousness. And like I say, Buddha called it nirvana and Jesus called it oneness with the Father. But a rose by any name, other name, still smells as sweet, right? We teach that if you'll follow these laws of the universe, and they're known in other systems of thought, the Hermetic philosophy, the way thousands of years ago taught these laws also. If you follow these laws, along the way, you'll get healthy. And along the way, you'll get happy, and your emotional life will be very pleasant. And if you want success or more money, along the way to cosmic consciousness, you'll have success in life. And if material things are important to you, we teach you how to get them. That's along the way. But the final destination at the concept therapy phases 1, 2, and 3 level is this oneness with the power that created us. We call it cosmic consciousness. And there have been books written. Richard Maurice Buck, he was an MD. He wrote a book around 1900, big, thick book called Cosmic Consciousness. And it's well worth reading. And it's about all of these people who have had this experience in life and been sent back down into this human plane of understanding to lift humanity and to teach people that just having stuff is not what it's all about. Just that football game and your can of beer and your pizza, there's more to life than that. And it's a level of consciousness. And when you have attained to that level, it can't be taken away from you. And life is just better. It's happier. And success. I've got, in 48 years, I've driven my Rolls Royce and flown my airplane and had my Porsches and Mercedes. I drive a Mercedes now. It's stuff. What I'm looking for is that union of soul and spirit. It happened to Jesus. It happened to his follower, Paul. Remember that story in the Bible? Saul's on the road to Damascus, and all of a sudden, pow, he has this illumination. And he hears a voice. And he ended up authoring what we know, most of what we know as the New Testament of the Bible. And it was all about following this path. I'm off into a little bit of a religious bent here, but concept therapy is not religion. Dr. Fleet said, don't ever try to turn this into a religion. This is science. Learning these laws is science. They are science-based laws. And if you learn them and then follow them and incorporate these laws into your being, your very being, you will attain to more and more of this highest level of consciousness called cosmic. And there are levels.
Right.
And you hit these epiphanies, these ahas, and you say, wow, man, I like this. And it can't be taken away from you because you're there. So you ask me, what is concept therapy all about? You could ask the 10 of the top teachers, and they'd all give you a little different slant. I've been teaching it for 46 years. And so I've taught hundreds of classes, and I've had tens of thousands of students. And it's miraculous, especially as you get into the higher work. It becomes so beautiful and so peaceful. And then when it becomes you, back to being a chiropractor, you give that out and you heal people.
And you started studying in the 70s, and Dr. Fleet didn't pass until 1983. So is that safe to say that you were studying when he was still deeply involved with the Institute?
Yeah. Even though he had quit teaching, and when I got involved in 1974, he had stopped teaching and basically turned everything over to the people that he had taught and that he could trust. But he's still there in the background. He was doing a lot of recordings. And my first teacher was Char Maddox, and who you've interviewed. And Char would have Dr. Fleet make us a special tape for our classes. And so the first hour of Char's class was always a Thurman Fleet tape that he would make especially for Char and this particular class. It was pretty cool.
And then, so with him being in the background, so you obviously saw him.
I never saw him.
You never saw him. Okay.
I never met him. We did communicate, but by letter.
Okay.
There was no internet or anything back then. So
Can I jump in for just one quick second?
Yeah.
For those listening out there with Dr. Fleet, I don't think any chiropractor can throw a rock and hit one or two chiropractors that even heard of Dr. Fleet before, which when I found out about Dr. Fleet, I was surprised. Dr. Fleet was probably, you can call him the foundation for what you call modern chiropractic practice management now. So when you look at Parker, for example, student of Dr. Fleet, Parker went on, of course, to create the college in Texas and Parker seminars. And how many chiropractors, chiropractic gurus or practice management chiropractors came from Parker? You can talk about Sid Williams. You can talk about James Zigafus. You can talk about Reggie Gold. You can talk about any of these chiropractors that you would say, wow, these guys are the staples of our profession. They're the foundation of profession, but they came from Dr. Fleet. So if there's any chiropractor that you can say never received the credit that they should have received for growing our profession and having such a huge influence on our profession, it would be Dr. Fleet. It's an interesting story and how things come around. I went to New York Chiropractic College. I graduated in 92. And for the last few years when I was in school, I worked in the AV department. So I would pass out old video cassettes and books and like NYCC's library. And in the back of the room of the library, there was an old Fleet demonstrator spine. And I remember the thing would the thing was sitting in the back room, and it would be covered with dust, and students would come in and look at it. And of course, I'd play around with it. And the guy who's in charge of the AV department would be like, yeah, that's a Fleet demonstrator. And that's about all I knew about it. We used to call it the Terminator spine because it looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger in the movie, The Terminator. Full circle now, I'm practicing zone technique, and I've actually got one hanging on my wall now. So from going from touching this thing and not having an idea what it was in 92 or who Dr. Fleet was to now just exclusively practicing zone technique and learning concept therapy. It's funny how things come around. But Dr. Fleet, you could probably say he was the Tesla of chiropractic, a guy who really gave a lot to the profession, but ended up not getting credit for his work where it should have been due. Even guys like Bob Proctor, who is famous for The Secret, the stick figure man that Dr. Fleet uses to explain the relationship between the consciousness, the conscious brain, the subconscious brain, and the body. He gave that to Bob Proctor, and he took it and just ran with it. And one of the famous guys associated with The Secret. So Dr. Fleet and his work, they have their connection goes far into a lot of things in a lot of parts of chiropractic that most chiropractors don't even know about. So that alone, I would encourage them to get online and just learn about them. And once you learn about them and you learn about concept therapy, for me, concept therapy, the benefit was if you want to gain an appreciation of how powerful innate is and how vast innate is and what innate is capable of, Dr. Fleet had a way of just describing the development of the primitive glandular system, the primitive nervous system, the primitive circulatory system. And then you get to see how this wisdom, we call it universal intelligence, developed all of these systems throughout eons of time to culminate in us, the greatest form of these systems as human beings. So if you're interested in innate, and it's a big part of your practice, if you want to learn more about innate and understand it at a different level, then you need to take concept therapy, because there is nowhere else in chiropractic that I think you're going to get that depth of understanding of innate except from Dr. Fleet's work.
Oh, 100%. And I'm glad that you're kind of mentioning that as well, too, because to get full circle with my experience, where I think I took everything on the planet, joined a bunch of different practice manager groups, and you always look at some of the people that are seeing the high volume or success in whatever form or fashion that the person's looking at it. And obviously the work that Dr. Fleet did was, it's all based on universal principles, whether they learn it through things that he's teaching or you learned it from somebody else. But I believe that these people had that special something that, like BJ had talked about. And I feel like sometimes whenever people go on stage and they try to explain it, they're not able to explain it in a way that
Right.
I felt that I was able to
or the majority of them are practicing it inadvertently. They're doing concept therapy. They just don't know they're doing it.
Yep, exactly.
So if you've been in practice for 5, 10, 15 years, and it's the same thing that Dr. Fleet experienced. He'd have patients with the same condition, get the same adjustments. One person gets better, one person stays the same, and one person gets worse. And he couldn't figure that out. And it drove him crazy to the point where he had his illumination, and then finally was able to say, all right, this is the foundation of what healing is all about. Let's break it down and understand it. And when you understand it and you step back, I can look at patients now and know, just from the relationship and knowing concept therapy, that this person is probably not going to get results right away. Or there's going to be some extra steps we have to take. Or there's going to be a greater understanding, versus in the past when I would just do my technique and wonder, why are they getting results? Why am I not seeing changes with these people? Until you go deeper and understand the concepts that are driving people and the concepts that are interfering with the normal function of innate intelligence within their body. Once you get to that point, then your goal becomes, now we've got to dig a little deeper. We've got to dig a little deeper into these patients and find out, great, they got an adjustment. What are they going home to now? What's going on inside of their head? And we're not trying to be Sigmund Freud for people, but there's such a depth of understanding in the healing process and the patient connection that concept therapy and Dr. Fleet has afforded more than any practice management, any group, or anything that I've experienced. And not to lessen any of that work, because it's all built on making me who I am right now. But Dr. Fleet work, it literally opened up my eyes to be able to take all of these pieces of the puzzle that seem to be just dumped on the table. And now I can see these pieces where they fit. And
Right.
it's made practice like you can breathe in practice again. You can finally say, I'm going in and I know how to drive this car. Now I'm not just pushing on the pedals and hoping I don't crash into anything. Now I know how to drive it. And that confidence just breeds more success and more volume and more referrals, because you're on the right track.
And some of the stories that you're mentioning was also in the suggestive therapy course, or the booklet anyways, as well too, which I know that Dr. Bill will be teaching as well, like later on this year. So we have a good framework of concept therapy in my mind anyway.
Can I jump in?
Yeah,
Can I
please.
jump in and just say one thing? Okay, it's important to understand that the bulk of our classes, the majority of our students are not chiropractors. They are everybody, because the same principles of healing apply to any problem you might have. So if you're a mother or a wife or a husband or a father, it doesn't matter what you are, the same laws of healing apply to fixing anything. And that's the beauty of concept therapy. It can turn a chiropractor into a marvelous healer, but it can make you successful and a self problem solver in miraculous ways. We just don't want people to think it's only for chiropractors. It's for everybody.
And it's not even just all just about even just healing as well too, because it's these universal laws that's applied into your life. So it's like my biggest takeaway from concept therapy, I took it with my wife on the way driving from Oklahoma after I closed my practice. And then so my wife and I actually had like our Toyota Camry packed up to the brim. We were actually closed that upper cervical practice, and then we're on our way to Florida. And then it so happened that same weekend that the Maddoxes and Jamie Alexander was teaching concept therapy actually in Dallas. And this was back in 2018. And so my first, I guess that's not really the first time. Like the first course I took was actually way too high of a gradient. It was psychiatric principles, I believe. And I think I understood like maybe the first hour or two before I was like, okay, I really need to take concept therapy first. But with concept therapy, like my biggest takeaway was like, man, like finally somebody truly explained oneness. I was like, oh, okay, this is finally, because I grew up Catholic, and then I'm not that to bring religion into this too, but then I was like, okay, once I went to chiropractic school, started learning about being holistic and vitalism and everything is one unit. But then I wasn't able to like really wrap my head around that. And then Martini talks about non-duality, but it wasn't until that aha moment where step by step, it's like those like layers of an onion that was peeled back. I was like, oh man, but it's definitely way overdue for me to do a refresher to go through it. It's pretty funny because it was only until I've gotten older that I'm like, I'm okay with rewatching a movie, because like when I was younger as a kid, I was just like, why would I rewatch a movie? That's dumb. What a waste of time. But now I'm like, oh, I do get enjoyment. I'm a different person now when I rewatch a movie or reread a book. And especially with concept therapy, they're just now I'm going through the manual that I have, and I'm like going through the first paragraph. I'm like, there's so many different ways I can unravel this. So I'm taking a little bit more time to be able to really truly understand the work. And to be honestly, I really want to just go back to the ranch. There's something about just being full immersion and surrounded by just some amazing people, so that it just really drives it deep. And then you can just ask questions from the people that not only just really know the work, but really own it. And that's where those are the type of people that I want to be around as well too. But so with concept therapy and then phase one, and then can you explain the differences between concept therapy, phase one, and now I guess we can throw in suggestive therapy too, another class that you're teaching later on this year.
Phase one is the practical side of the concept therapy instruction, where we get to actually do the things that we only talked about in the concept therapy class. Because in the concept therapy class, all you're doing is sitting and learning. You're listening to the teacher and taking notes, and it's a classroom setup. Phase one, we get up and we partner up and we actually do the demonstrations, because the purpose of phase one is how to contact and direct the innate. And there are laws and there are rules to follow if you want to learn to contact and direct the innate to get it to do what you want it to do. So phase one is what we could call psychotherapy, originating an idea and then sinking that idea down in the other person. You know, in the chiropractic office, it's your patient. In class, it's whoever you've partnered up with. And so it's absolutely amazing what we do in phase one. You just got to be there and see it and participate. You can't watch it on TV, on your computer. You got to participate. Phase two now follows phase one, and it's the opposite. You got junk down there in the unconscious mind that's expressing itself in your life. How do you know what it is? How do you know where it is? So we give you the tools of looking down in your subconscious, your unconscious mind, and it's fun. We give you different methods, and we practice them in class also with other people. And you recognize that there's junk, and then we learn how to get the junk out. You're putting the pure stuff in with the phase 1 methods. In phase 2, you're getting the junk out. So, you know, that you've got a clean pool to put your stuff in, your new ideas. Suggestive therapy is very similar to phase 1. It was designed more for the healer, although there have been, for many decades, there have been suggestive therapy classes for the layman. And so, in other words, anybody can take suggestive therapy. And even today, you don't have to be a doctor to take suggestive therapy. And it's similar to the phase 1 of conceptology course, but it's a little more concentrated on what the doctor needs to do in his clinic, how to heal. And again, doctors don't heal, the patient heals themselves, but you've got to turn that healing power loose. The chiropractic method is remove the interference between the brain and the body and the brain, get the interference out, but then what ideas are you going to put in? And how do you put them in? And what ideas don't you put in? Because a lot of people do this wrong, and they'll be putting negative in. And it's a real fun class. I love teaching suggestive therapy. I love taking suggestive therapy. And again, it's a weekend of fun.
That's awesome.
I'll be there at the ranch to teach that class too.
And I think whenever actually Nathan Baveri actually was the one who introduced me to the brochure or the booklet on the philosophy of suggestive therapy. And when I got a hold of that and I read it, I was like, man, this is it. I was like, this is it. This is what I've been searching my entire career. And I can just stop spending all of this money on these random things. And that's when I ran off to take the psychiatric principles course. I was like, okay, let me just back off a little bit too. But yeah, and so if people are watching this or listening to this and they're trying to decide of, okay, like maybe feel lost or stuck of, okay, what is it really about all the different therapies that are going around right now where maybe they're in this insurance model and maybe they're not getting reimbursed as well, and looking to add in shockwave or decompression or whatever it is. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing to add red light therapy, but at the end of the day, it's like, what makes these modalities helping people? And I believe that you can apply all the things that you're learning from concept therapy to those modalities just as well. So I think it's not one of those things where you have to be this hardcore straight chiropractor or this layperson. And I don't know if there's a nicer way to say layperson, just an average person, just to come in and take this stuff, because it's how many times do you talk to people about life and issues and what's going on. It doesn't have to be this relationship of doctor and patient. But let's see here. So with the concept therapy course, phase 1, phase 2, and then suggestive therapy, I know that all the courses build upon each other as well too, but is there like a favorite course that you like above others, that like where you feel like if you teach it, you get the most ahas? Or I guess it's every course is going to be a little bit different, or is there like a course that you just really enjoy teaching at all?
I love teaching the foundation course, concept therapy, because it teaches me. It's like something opens up here and the universe starts pouring ideas down into me. Concept therapy is amazing. And I love teaching phase 2 because it's very esoteric, even though you might think we're just doing psychotherapy or psychoanalysis. That psychoanalysis is the foundation of phase 2. I love it. But my favorite course is phase 4 of conceptology, because it's our introduction to higher path teachings, to the true esoteric, the hidden teachings, the inner teachings that most people don't have available to them. And we just come out with it. And so all of our, what we call the upper work, phases 4, 5, 6, 7, and cosmic principles, is stuff you don't learn in college. It's way above that.
Okay. I do have a burning question that's, I wouldn't say off topic, but for you, Dr. Bill, I wish we were like in your office or something like that too. Or if we can go back to your first office, like what type of posters or what kind of things do you have on the walls at your office?
In my office, in my waiting room, I have two big chiropractic posters that relate vertebrae to the organs and systems and so on. And I've got two large on and off the beam charts. And then right behind where Robin sits, my wife is my office manager and my CA. I bought these decals and I put this one on the wall. It says health now available without a prescription. And I have a number of those decals throughout my office. When I repainted my office, I went to a chiropractic company and I've got the Thomas Edison and the Hippocrates sayings and all of that. When a patient walks into my adjusting room, the big thing on the wall says, I move the bone, God does the healing. And so I don't take credit for people's healing. I'd say there's something inside of you that does the healing. And then in that adjusting room, I've got the zone charts and large posters of each of the zones also, so that the zone charts are down here on the wall, and then right above that, 6 big charts that spans about 6 feet. And that's what I've got.
And then how does your patient education work in regards to the zones? Do you talk too much about it, or you just do like what is your consult and like cover?
My initial consultation is all about what NUCCA is about, and how if the body's going to heal itself, it has to be free of interference. And I take the x-rays and I show them the analyzed x-rays. I also have a myovision, which is a high tech, like the old heat sensor, the old neurocolometer, but this one is Bluetooth. It comes back out on the screen and it shows the temperature changes up. I just do the neck up into the skull, and I do one of those and I show them that. And I just talk about chiropractic in general before I even get into zones. And then I start adjusting them. And as we progress along, then I'll say, well, you've got a zone problem here. And I show them the chart and how the brain center relates to the body and so on. And I don't have a canned speech. I did Gibson management for years and years, and he wants you to do a canned speech. And I did that and it works, but I tailor what I say to the patient. If you're 90 years old and in a lot of pain, you don't want to hear anything. You just want to get, and if you're a little kid, I could easily talk way over their head. And so I don't do that. So I tailor what I talk to the patient about to the patient.
And then,
But I stick to chiropractic. We're not talking about cutting grass or is it going to snow tonight.
and then with your technique, obviously shooting x-rays and stuff like that as well too. And I know as an upper cervical doc, especially with NUCCA, like you're focusing in on the atlas. And then, but you did say that you also touched the 4 different points in the spine as well.
Yeah, especially if a patient is not getting good symptomatic results. They come there for symptomatic relief. They don't come there to get their spine corrected. They come there because they hurt or whatever, and they want to get over that. And the chiropractor has to understand that. And so you have to deal with what the patient came in for. And my mindset is I want to correct the atlas subluxation complex. They don't even know what that is. They don't come there for that. That's what my job is to do. And then I'll talk about zones and I'll say, you got a circulatory zone problem. Let's check that out. And I can palpate the back of their skull along the superior nuchal line and so on. And I've taught that. I traveled the country for years with Dr. Eddie Harrison, and we had doctor-only classes. And we'd have 40, 50, 60 chiropractors in our classes. And I taught the zone work, and I taught suggestive therapy, and phase 1, suggestive therapy, the zone work. It all was just a big package in a 26-hour class. They were really good classes, and they were very well received.
That's awesome. Let's get it back to it. That's that's the goal right now.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And the
then,
Institute's working on that.
yeah. And then,
So it needs to be taught in every chiropractic college, period. You
Oh,
shouldn't
yeah.
be able to graduate without knowing some of this stuff. The basic stuff you really need to be able to get out of school and to have any chance of succeeding, or at least to know what to do to succeed, instead of fishing around for 5 years trying to find the right thing and haphazardly stumbling on the right thing but not knowing that you did it. And then before you know it, you're off the right thing and you're not succeeding, and you end up porpoising in practice. You're just going up and down and up and down. And instead of just starting off with, this is the foundation, concept therapy, suggestive therapy. Here's the technique that I like to use to connect with my patient hand on body. And then you just go, but always knowing that the suggestion and the images that you're putting in these patients and the fascination that you're creating with your patient is the foundation of them getting results and getting better. All techniques work. How many times have we heard Dr. Fleet said it? They all work. They all work when you are striving to be the best at it and that you understand the principles of suggestive therapy. And inside the patient's head, it's almost like a hostage negotiation. You're trying to get the concepts in their head to clear away enough for innate to do its job. You're basically trying to get the concepts that are stopping them from healing, or the concepts that they don't even know about subconsciously that are creating the health problems inside of them. And then once you clear that out of the way, and innate can finally say, thank you for removing this barrier. And for us, for zone doctors, in that moment, it's okay. The barrier has been removed and this person needs a little help with their circulation. Thank you, innate, for restoring their circulatory zone back to factory settings. And it literally could be as simple as that. But if you're coming out of school thinking that, okay, I need this technique, I got a huge student loan, I got to add this therapy, then you're all over the place, and you're so far away from the truth that if you don't get a grip on something like concept therapy, you could be lost for years, unfortunately. So it should be in the schools. But what's the right thing to do and then what gets done most of the time are two totally different things.
One of the things I do want to pick Dr. Bill's brain about a little bit more about this book that I saw when I was touring all these different chiropractic offices when I was at Parker before getting kicked out. But I came across his book when we were just waiting around before the speaker spoke in these different offices of the Rays of the Dawn. And with Rays of the Dawn, when were you first kind of introduced to that book? And how has that affected like your practice and how do you use it in practice?
Well, let's talk about the book first. The Rays of the Dawn is more along the lines of a handbook. Each course has a text, and the teacher reads that text and explains it in each of the courses. Concept therapy has a concept therapy text. Phase 1 has a phase 1 text, and on you go. The Rays of the Dawn is more like a life handbook. It talks about laws of the body, of which there are 4, and laws of the mind. It's a misnomer. Those are the negative things like fear, worry, anger, and so on. And then the third section is laws of the soul, which are the opposites. We have faith and hope and love and the positives. And I was introduced to the Rays of the Dawn by Dr. Eddie Harrison, who introduced me to concept therapy while we were in chiropractic college. He'd gone all the way through the work. And so he introduced me to it and he gave me a copy. And it's a book that every student receives automatically because it's the kind of book that grows with you. You're not the same person today that you were yesterday. And so if you were to take a section of the Rays of the Dawn and read it today, it would be a different book or a different section than what you read yesterday, because we change and we grow. And the miraculous part of this book is it grows with us. And so you might think that you've got let's say the law of nourishment down pat, and you know everything about that chapter. And all of a sudden, 6 months later, you open up to chapter 1, the law of nourishment, and you say, holy cow, I never saw that in there. That's because you're different. You're not the person that read it before. And so and there's 28 chapters in that book, and those chapters grow with you. The book is so important that we have students holding meetings in just the rays of the dawn. Anybody can attend, by the way. So all of us concept therapy students, I go to them. Kate Davis has one every other Monday. That one's in the afternoon. And a lady named Asapita, she's a fairly new student. She lives in England, and she has a meeting every couple of weeks. And I attend that one also. And the book is so important that you can't use it up. And even though you might think you've memorized a section, meanings change. The words are the same, but the meanings change because you've changed. And it's the same with all of our work. I can't wait for the next concept therapy course. And I've probably taught it way over 100 times, but I can't wait to take it again because I'm different than I was yesterday or last year. I'm different. And so the concept therapy course will come to me as a brand new course. And so I have never taken the course before until I take it again, because the me that's taking it now is not the me that took it before. And so it's genius is not even a word, a good word. It is miraculous, our coursework, because it grows along with you. And back to the rays of the dawn, anybody can get a rays of the dawn. You can't have a text for the courses until you've had the course. Anybody can get a rays of the dawn. You can order them from the Institute. And I keep them in my office. And if a patient's talking about a certain problem, I'll say, here, take this home and read this chapter. And if you get time, read the whole book because you'll love it. And if you want to keep it, pay me. I usually don't even do that. I just say, keep the book. So anyway, it's our handbook. It's like our Bible, because it helps us to grow physically, mentally, and spiritually. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
I can go on. Okay.
Oh yes, absolutely. That's perfect. And that's the thing too. I was always curious to see. I think I don't even remember the chiropractors' names, but like the book had always appeared. I was like, oh man, this is amazing. So too, diving into it, I totally agree. I'm definitely young in my studies of it too, but I just started reading alongside my wife. And there's times where I go through it and I'm reading and I'm like, okay, I don't understand this word. So I want to make sure that we define this word before moving on, because what I don't want to do is get to the bottom of the page. I'm like, hey, what the heck did we just read? So I always make sure that I get the correct understanding of what the words that he's trying to portray on there as well too. But
that's very important. And when
right.
I'm taking a class, because I take most all the classes, we sit on our couch and we Zoom them on the computer. But I have this phone with me because I've got a Webster's dictionary right here. And if I don't really understand a word, I go to Webster's dictionary and I make sure that I understand that word, because if you really don't, everything comes after that, you're not really going to understand fully. And so that's part of learning correctly. You got to understand those words as they come along. Point.
So any final questions or thoughts, Dr. Rob? Oh, I think.
Here we go.
Yep.
This was great. I know from just working on patients, the challenges that we all have when someone is in front of us and trying to make sure that we have the right mindset. I'd like to ask Dr. Bill if he could explain maybe the processes that go on inside of his head when there's a person on the table. And is there ways what does he do to try to keep the noise from life and stresses that he may be experiencing life, and how he can get that stuff out of the way to focus on the patient? And then what goes through your head when you're actually making an adjustment with your client?
That's a really good question. I am a human, and sometimes that chatter goes on, and I hate it, but it does go on. So I try to calm that down. And for me, I try to concentrate on a visualization of a perfect adjustment and the result that I expect out of that adjustment. And so you love the patient and you try to become one with the patient. They're laying there on the table, and then you're making the adjustment and you're picturing it as being a perfect adjustment. And I'm fairly busy, and so I don't spend a lot of time with my patients. They're in and out in under 10 minutes for sure, sometimes under 5. It doesn't take me long, but the subtle little suggestions that you give your patient are incredibly impactful. And I'll say something as simple as, I got it, when I adjust them, or, oh boy, that was a good one, or little things that they're open, there, nothing else is coming in except my voice. And so make those positive suggestions on every case. And any little phrase, and we talk about these in phase 1 a lot, little things that you can say to the patient. This one's going to make you strong. This one's going to really make you wide awake. Whatever you tailor to the patient. You got to keep it positive, and you got to keep it brief. Like a patient can't take in a whole lot at any one time. So make it powerful.
Awesome.
Or I'd simply say, man, that was a great adjustment. Little things like that. They walk out of the room with that. I got a great adjustment, or he got it, or whatever. Am I answering your question?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That kind of confirms some of the things that I was studying before too. I was part of a group where a doc, the founder, Steve Hayes, really suggested using 10 words or less. And I don't know if he took concept therapy. I have no idea, but he would use these 10 words or less, but make it very impactful for them as well too. And people spun it in different ways, but yeah, like simple, brief, powerful, logical, positive, broad, all those things. Yeah, that's awesome. I don't know, Kate, maybe just listening in, or maybe, I don't know. Let's see. Maybe not. But
Oh, I was just listening in. Sorry I joined late, but
oh no, you're good. You're
forgot
good.
to get I didn't have a reminder set, and I happened to check email, and I was like, oh, I'm missing this, but it's been great what I heard. So
Okay.
I appreciate you allowing me to listen.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But
I've got one more question.
okay.
If Dr. Bill doesn't mind, with all your years of practice, are there any cases that really stand out in your mind as, wow, that was miraculous, or holy cow, that was just an amazing result and an amazing experience for the patient?
Yeah, a lot of them. How much time are we limited to here?
We could be here all night listening to them. I wouldn't mind.
Let's do it.
I had a young gal in her mid-20s. She was unable to walk without a walker. She was basically dying. I think she was on 16 different meds. Her medical doctors had all fired her, just sent her home to die. And her boyfriend, significant other, they live together as husband and wife. They're not married, but her boyfriend worked out at the same gym we go to. And he was asking me, because he knew I was a chiropractor. And so he started questioning me about what chiropractic could do for Destiny. And I said, I would have to bring her in. I would have to take x-rays. I would have to check her brain stem to see what's going on, but I can probably help. And lo and behold, he made the appointment, and they pulled up in front of the office. The car was probably 20 feet from the front door. It probably took her 10 minutes to get from the car into my office, because she was like, even a walker wasn't enough. She should have been in a wheelchair, but she came in holding on to this walker. And here's this beautiful 25-year-old gal. And so we talked, and I examined her, and I x-rayed her, and her neck was a mess. And I just told her, I'm going to take the pressure off your brainstem. And I did. And she got up off the table, and she walked out. And she walked out into to Robin's desk out there in the waiting room. And she had this really weird look on her face. I can't believe this. And she walked to the car and left. And a couple of days later, I had her come back, and she went to the front desk, and she said to Robin, she says, watch this. She raised her hands up and she bent over and touched her toes and then raised back up. She said, unbelievable. Anyway, no meds and everything. I see her on a regular basis. I like to joke and say I got her pregnant because she was unable to get, they're living together and she was unable to get pregnant. And all of a sudden I fixed her and she had her first baby 5 years ago and she's pregnant now again. So I guess I'm responsible for that one too. That's a joke. That's a joke. But anyway, that's another one. A kid, he was 13 years old, about the size of an 8-year-old. He just hadn't grown. And his mom brought him in. She says, I hear you do kind of miracle stuff on people. And I said, sometimes I do. And so anyway, I x-rayed him and I laid him on the table to give him his first adjustment. And after I was done adjusting him, I always lay them back over on their back so I can recheck their leg length to see if I've dropped their hips level. He laid back on his back and his eyes were like saucers. And I said, what's wrong? And he said, I can't believe this. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, you know what it's like before you go to sleep at night where you're almost asleep? And I said, yeah, happens to me every night. He said, that's the way I've lived my life. And he said, you just woke me up. And now I can see and I can hear and I'm awake. And it was from that point, it was a miracle. But to watch this kid grow week after week to the size of a 13-year-old in like just a few months, it was totally amazing. And I just adjusted his atlas and gave him the suggestions he needed. But I've been doing this for a long time. So, you know what, people look at all these miracles and think, oh, Dawson's a miracle worker. To me, it's just chiropractic. It's just chiropractic. It's what we do. So I get miracles walk out, and I tell people this. I said, miracles walk out my front door every day. And that's my mindset. Miracles are going to walk out my front door every day. And they do. I could go on and on. Gosh.
And that's a powerful basic concept. That's awesome.
So
that is awesome.
So some of the questions that I feel like right now I'm, for better or worse, mentoring some new grads, a lot of young docs that are fresh, super wet behind the ears, and they're opening in practice and they're starting families and they're really feeling it right now in regards to practice. And maybe they were a part of a practice management group before and they try to hang in there and try to make it work, but when maybe that didn't work out, and now, or maybe like this doc right now, not only is maybe struggling in practice, maybe in regards to the bills are piling up, and maybe have a second child on the way. And the thought of traveling out to San Antonio or paying the $500 to take the concept therapy course, maybe it's okay, what am I really going to get out of this? What is going to be this return on investment? And what would you say to these docs that maybe not have all these different barriers, whether it's inside their mind but also know that there's some real financial struggles that some of these docs are encountering? And what would you say to them in regards to about coming to the Institute or taking one of the many courses that are being taught all around the country to get them to go and take the concept therapy course?
That is a tough one. And believe me, because I have lots and lots of people that I know, I know patients, and a lot of them give me the money thing. And even when it was like $295 back years ago, my first course was $130, and that was a lot of money. But this was in the 70s. Yeah. I had put it on a credit card. So I would tell that person, call Rob Shaw and borrow the money from Rob, or call Kate Davis, borrow the money, get there, no matter how you have to do it, get there. And it's a matter of how important is it to you? And I ask crazy questions like, let's say Jesus came back and he was going to be at a stadium in Los Angeles. Would you go?
I think so.
I can't afford it. Or I ask a person who really believes in Thurman Fleet and so on, if Fleet came back and he was going to teach a class at the Concept Therapy Institute. We call it the Ranch in San Antonio. What would you do? Would you just say, I can't afford to go? We all have a priority stack. And it changes from minute to minute. It changes from day to day. But there are things that are very important to us that, to me, concept therapy is on the top of my priority stack. Getting to my chiropractic office on time every day, which I do, that's way up there on my priority stack. This is just stuff I do. And I'll tell you a quick story. A couple of years ago, I'd gone to my chiropractor down in Southern California, 200 miles away. And I was driving back home, and I was driving by, it was getting ready for, what's that big football game?
Super Bowl.
The Super Bowl. They were going to have it down there. And the traffic was immense. There were like thousands and thousands of cars, people going in there that had paid somewhere between $5,000 and $50,000 for a seat to go sit there in that Super Bowl. And I'm going to make a twofold point here. People, they would sell their mother to go to the Super Bowl if they could, because it's that important. $50,000 for a 3-hour experience? Come on. And yet they do it. And every seat in that stadium in the Super Bowl, every single year, is full, because people into football, that's on top of their priority stack. Okay. Why go there when you can just watch the whole game on TV? Why do that? And I say that as far as attending classes too. Why take it online if you can go fork out the money and go there? And it's like being at the Super Bowl in person. There is something electric. There's something happening that gets inside of you. It's more than just something coming through your eyes. It's a feeling. And you can get a certain amount of the material by taking a concept therapy class online, which we do all the time. But being there is the ultimate. And if you can be at a live class, you got to do it. Just like a football person, being at a Super Bowl would be heaven to them. So how did I get on that subject? I don't even remember.
That was perfect. So, yeah, before we wrap up, any final messages or any thoughts, final burning desire?
Concept therapy is a must. It's a must for the new student. It correlates very well with the original Palmers. I would recommend that any student or any young old chiropractor get D.D. Palmer's original book, The Philosophy, Science, and Art of Chiropractic, or otherwise known as The Chiropractor's Adjuster. It's that big, thick book, green. And you can listen to a lot of B.J. Palmer's lectures. Just go on YouTube and get some of his green books. They're magnificent. They really are magnificent. And I have some. And then I've got all of the green books in my computer. If you want to embrace and own a philosophy, go to the originator. Start with D.D. Palmer. He even called his original chiropractic a new religion. Yeah, he did. He called it a new religion because it was an awakening of the spiritual man. And BJ had a little different slant, but he carried on chiropractic very well. And how marvelous it would be to sit at the feet of D.D. Palmer or B.J. Palmer. I was fortunate because when I went to chiropractic college, my philosophy teacher, who taught every single day, we had a 1-hour class every day, and she had sat at the feet of B.J. Palmer, and that's how she learned. And so I was getting B.J. through her, and it was just absolutely incredible. It would be like hanging out with Reggie Gold or my favorite Jim Sigafus, some of these guys. Always get it from the originator. And I don't care what philosophy you're into. Start with the originator. And if you want chiropractic, and if you want the zone work, there are other people out there teaching the zone work, and they're doing a good job. And we're getting a lot of students from them because a lot of people are of my mindset when I say, if you want to learn the zone work, get it from the person who originated it and started the concept therapy coursework. That's Dr. Thurman Fleet. So if you want the zone work, come to the concept therapy work and get it from the originator, not second or third hand, but get it from the originator.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your wisdom with us today. If this conversation stirred something for you, whether you're a chiropractor, a parent, or just someone just looking to live with more clarity and purpose, I encourage you to take the first step and take the concept therapy course, the first course. You don't have to figure out life on your own. There's definitely a blueprint, and it starts right here. Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to end the recording. Here we go.
Thanks, Dr.